So for those of us who weren't here yesterday, I'm going to kind of work backwards. So I'm going to work a couple so that hopefully those of you, I know some of us even that were here yesterday might want kind of like a little refresher. And hopefully for those of you guys that weren't here yesterday, I do have the notes recorded also, so you can go back and review those. But hopefully this will be enough to kind of get you started. So I'm going to work backwards because I know a lot of you guys like started working on the front already. So that regardless of whether you were here or not, hopefully I'm doing one that you haven't actually gotten to yet. And if you don't need my help, no big, if you don't need to listen to me, I'm totally fine with, like talking over you while you're working on it.
Can we just do the butterfly thing?
What did I say about that yesterday?
I don't remember.
Unfortunately, a lot of people can't get it right every time doing it that way. But if you're one of those people that can, great. All right. So if you don't have number 9 done, you probably want to pay attention here for a minute. All right. So the first page is nothing but just doing what you already know how to do. You're just isolating. Really, honestly, all this is isolating the variable, if I'm being straight up. So that n is sitting above, bless you, dividing by 8. That's what we need to cancel out. How do I cancel out dividing by 8? I multiply by 8, right? So I'm just going to multiply both sides by 8, okay? What's going to happen here, friends?
Oh, no, that's going to go away.
They're going to go away. You are correct. And that is going to leave me with that isolated n that I needed to start, okay? What I do to one side, of course, I have to do to the other side. So remember that all you need to do is you'll multiply those two and then divide, because obviously that's in the denominator, right? So this is going to end up being 8 times 9, and then whatever that is divided by 10, even though I know what that is. But so 8 times 9 is 72. 72 divided by 10. That is obviously not going to turn into a whole number. If it doesn't turn into a whole number, how are you supposed to leave it? In what format? Fractional form, thank you. Because we want to get used to leaving stuff as a fraction, because especially when we graph lines, we like fractions, because those are how we find our rise and our run when we do slope. If you're not so great with simplifying fractions, recall what you can do. You just type in your calculator, 72 divided by 10, hit that math, option 1 button. I'm going to assume we remember how to do that. Hello. But for those of us that know how to simplify, so both of those are divisible by 2 because they're both even numbers, that would get us 36 over 5. Remember, we don't want a mixed number because mixed numbers don't help us to do slope, which is why we're getting in the habit of leaving it as a fraction. So ringing a bell for everybody. We're pretty much all good. Okay, number 10, what do I do about the fact that n, the variable, is actually in the denominator? I can't just cancel out because it's 8 divided by n, not n divided by 8. What do I do about that? You can just flip it, as long as you flip the whole thing. That's the cool thing about, well, all types of equations, honestly. So I'm just going to flip it, and instead of doing 2 over 8, I'm going to do 8 over 2. Instead of 8 over n, I'm going to do n over 8. And then we're going to follow that same procedure for how we're going to get rid of it. We're going to cancel out the dividing by 8. How are we going to do that? By multiplying. Correct. Okay, so what's going to happen over there? That's going to cancel. Leave me with an n. Here I need to do 8 times 8. Which we all know, I'm sure, is 64. And 64 divided by 2, that one actually turns out to be a whole number, unless I've done something wrong. That should be 32. Sorry, my ends really suck. Kind of looks like a horseshoe. Oh, it does kind of look like pi. Oh, maybe that was like subconscious. Okay, so is page 1 ringing a bell for us? Ding, 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 bell rung. Okay, so we're going to do a couple on page 2, just to make sure we're good. Okay, remember, page 2 really isn't as crazy as it looks. You're still doing exactly the same thing. I'm going to work backwards again so I can make sure I get the ones that like maybe people haven't gotten to yet. And I like to rewrite these so that I have a little bit more space to like spread out what I'm going to do to solve. So this time, instead of, yes, sir.
Common denominator, school and test.
You can totally do the common denominator if you want to. Does not matter to me. Like I said, and same with the cross multiplying. If you get it right, go for it, brother. I don't care. As long as you got the work to support that you did it, that's fine by me. Okay, so what I would do though is, so I've got dividing by, this time we've got 2 things we need to cancel out. Dividing by 10 and dividing by 3. You could technically do the least common denominator. I personally, for my teeny tiny brain, think it's a little bit easier just to cancel out both denominators separately. So how do I cancel out dividing by 10? What's the opposite of dividing by 10? I'm going to multiply by 10. And of course, I have to do it on both sides. I also have a dividing by 3 to cancel out. How do I cancel out dividing by 3? I multiply by 3. So I personally, and if you think least common denominator is easier, that's cool. I personally think it's a little bit easier to just multiply by each of them separately. And then let's just scratch out everything that cancels. So what's going to cancel out over here?
10.
The 10s are going to cancel. But I still need to multiply that 3 by the x and by the 9. The 10's canceled, but the 3 is not. So 3 times x is going to give me 3x. But you're right, it is going to be 27. You were just a little ahead of me. 3 times 9 is 27. Over on the right-hand side, what canceled?
3.
The 3's. And then I still need to multiply what's left over. So 10 times x is 10x. Plus 70, yes, sir. Thank you. And ma'am, thank you for your help with that. So from here, this is just a plain old equations with variables on both sides. This is the only thing new we did yesterday. Instead of 1 denominator to cancel, you got 2. Okay? Mark out whatever cancels, and then just multiply what's left over. And from here, we just pick a variable and then isolate. What variable do we want to ditch?
10x.
Sure. Let's get rid of that 10x. This part I'm going to do quickly. We didn't even do notes over this part yesterday because we've been doing this for a hot minute. So I subtracted 10 x's from both sides. That left me with 70 over here. 3x, oh, I forgot my x. 3x minus 10x is negative 7x plus 27. And then we just need to finish isolating the variable by subtracting 27 on both sides. Again, I'm kind of hustling through this part because, you know, this is old news to us. Divide both sides by negative 7. What format should I leave this in?
Fraction.
A fraction. So I do end up getting x is equal to negative 43 over 7. Because even though I guess it technically doesn't matter, you want to put the negative there in the front. If you don't remember how to simplify, if you didn't know that 43 over 7 won't simplify, remember, you can just put in your calculator, 43 divided by 7. That will give you a decimal. You'll hit that little math fraction option. It'll turn it back into a fraction for you. So the only new part of what we did yesterday is this part right here. That we've got 2 denominators to cancel out now instead of 1. And then once you do that, you just multiply what's left over, solve it like a regular old equation from there. So this was the side that definitely gave people more trouble. So I'm going to shut up for just a second, and I'm going to pause, give you a minute to get number 20 started, and I am going to work it for you in a second while we're all together. Give you a minute to reason out those first couple steps. So what do I have to cancel out, guys? Okay, and what am I doing with that 6 and 4? Those are, they're division, which you're right. We're going to cancel out by multiplying, right? So we're going to multiply both sides by 6. And then we're also going to multiply both sides by 4. Let's look at what cancels out. So I've got those 6's are going to cancel, but I still need to do 4 times m and 4 times 2. And then over here, the 4's will cancel, but I still need to do the 6 times m and the 6 times -9. And then from there, we should be able to just solve it. We didn't even, like I said, we didn't even take notes over this yesterday. I'm just going to do -4m on both sides because I want to get rid of the smaller one. That's going to cancel. Leave me with an 8. 6m, take away 4m is 2m minus 54. I cancel out that minus 54 with a plus. And this part is pretty predictable. We know where we're going from here. Except that my thing is being very slow now. And I got a lot of extra. Hold, please. So that's going to get me, what's wrong with me? Oh, 62. That was probably a big question I don't want the answer to. What's wrong with me? Okay, and then divide both sides by 2. So this part should be old news to us. It's just those first couple steps that we are canceling out. 1 second, please. So we are canceling out both of those denominators, and then we need to multiply what is left over.